Hey there, A's Day fans. Welcome to our Friday edition of our show. We have made it through another week. Appreciate each and every one of you kicking off your weekend with us here at A's Day. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grata, and we are here to talk everything A's baseball. Today is Friday, January 30th. We've got a good show for you. On Wednesday, the A's announced their roster of non-roster invitees to A's MLB spring training camp. It is a list of 31 players. 10 of those players are the A's top 10 prospects. So we will be sure to discuss. We'll roll along to give you an idea of who all is going to be in that mix. And we'll share some thoughts along the way of who we think may have a legitimate chance of breaking the MLB roster to kick off things for the 2026 season. Later, we are going to discuss a potential upgrade to the A's rotation. Is Zac Gallen incoming? We'll discuss a little bit, learn about who he is as a pitcher profile, coming off a tough season, may be a candidate to receive a 1-year prove-it deal. I know Sutter Health Park necessarily isn't the most pitcher-friendly park, but on a prove-it deal, Gallen slotting into the middle of a rotation, would it make sense for the A's? We'll take a look at that. And then before we get on out of here for the weekend, we are kicking it back to the 2010s for this week's edition of This Player in A's History for today's show. We're going to talk about former A's third baseman and catcher, Josh Donaldson. All right, there, A's Day fans. Thank you again for tuning in to our latest edition of A's Day to hear our thoughts on everything going on. I do know as of the last few weeks, it has been rather quiet on the transactional front, aside from some minor league signings to add to the organizational depth and some rumors. But nevertheless, we're doing our best to fill the gap in this offseason between now and the time it's time for the A's pitchers and catchers to report the first sights and sounds of spring training. And then from there, before you can blink, a new season will be dawning upon us. So we're excited that baseball is quickly coming around the corner, and we'll be here once again to cover everything for the A's for the 2026 season. Before we jump into today's show, just want to give you all a reminder of where you can continue to find all A's Day content. So continue to support us via our podcast audio platforms, wherever you listen to us, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Continue to listen, download, like, support A's Day wherever you can. We appreciate each and every one of you. In addition, check out our social media platforms on Instagram at A's Day Baseball Podcast, on X, formerly known as Twitter, at A's Day Baseball, and check out our YouTube channel for A's player interviews, virtual or video editions of these podcast episodes, as well as baseball destination virtual guides, and so much more as we're going to grow that channel in 2026. For your entertainment and likeness, be sure to check out our A's Day YouTube channel. And to become an official subscriber of A's Day, check us out on our Patreon site, patreon.com/A's Day for just $2 a month. You'll be entered to win monthly A's Day t-shirts, A's autographed memorabilia, future A's MLB tickets, and so much more as we are able to grow this platform collaboratively. All right, so let's discuss the main topic today is that the A's on Wednesday released their non-roster players that they've invited to Major League Camp. And we're just going to roll along through it just so we get familiarized of who we may see down there in Mesa competing for a spot on the 2026 A's roster. So we've got it pulled up here without a doubt for these 31 players. And like I had mentioned, 10 of them are from their top 10 prospect list, which was something to see without doubts. And that's something where really curious to see which out of that group who we really feel may have a legitimate chance to crack this roster for 2026. There may be some guys on there that we feel are a little bit ahead of schedule. Some that maybe we're just waiting for them to finally break through, whatever the case may be. Very intrigued by this group without a doubt. So we're going to roll along through it. And we've got the 31 here. So we'll start with the pitchers that were invited. Nick Anderson. So we were familiar that he signed a minor league deal with the A's. We did an earlier on in the offseason. He's going to have a shot at a bullpen role. Ben Bowden, J.J. Goss, Jeff Hartlieb, another guy that they brought in on a minor league deal, as they did with Nick Hernandez. Kenya Huggins is part of that top 10 A's prospect list. They acquired him via the trade with the Cincinnati Reds in exchange for Miguel Andujar last season. Gage Jump on the list. Jamie Arnold as well, like we have mentioned. It is official that both of those are two of their top tier prospects have received invitations to spring training. And I think I want to spend a little time talking about those two because I'm very intrigued on what the A's mindset is here. Because it could be a couple things, and we'll walk through some theories here. So for someone like Gage Jump, I think he legitimately is going to have every opportunity to win that number 5 spot. I think at each level in the minor leagues, he has proven that he can excel at getting hitters out and creating a high strikeout percentage. I think he's improved on his command too as well. I don't know if perhaps he may need one more year of grooming, but I think also really good opportunity to see what he has and how his development has gone so far, because I think the A's are itching to pull the trigger on one of Jump or their first round pick from this past year's draft, Jamie Arnold. And I know that would seem rather fast because Arnold hasn't thrown a professional pitch for the A's as of yet. But that would be something to see with the major league comparisons that he has received, including a very similar arsenal to Chris Sale. That is something to keep an eye on in spring training. That unfamiliarity of some new fresh blood. I mean, if Arnold comes out pumping and is dominating major league hitters, it's going to be really hard for the A's to not have that desire to have him start with the big league club. But in terms of his overall development, I do think it would make more sense for Arnold to at least have a year of professional pitching under his belt. So between the two, I think it would be more likely here that we would see Gage Jump. And I think he has every opportunity to win that back end of this rotation role. I'm very excited. He does come after you. He attacks you. Just wondering if he'll have the consistency to translate from minor league hitters to professional. But I think those are two guys to certainly star if you have the non-roster list in front of you and you're marking guys that to keep an eye on in spring training. Definitely would say Arnold and Jump are two guys to keep an eye on. Wherever they do end up being placed, I think they are going to still turn heads, and looking forward to seeing what could be the present, but definitely a very positive and strong future. Let's roll along here. So some other guys that have been invited: Brooks Kriske, Matt Crook returns. He was with the A's last year. Joel Kuhnel, Wei-In Lin, Cade Morris, Domingo Robles, Gustavo Rodriguez, Wander Suero, who they brought in on a minor league deal, and Junior Tur. All right, now let's talk about the position players that were invited. Brian Lavastida, Shane McGuire, and Brian Serven, and Chad Wallach. So I think this is a group to keep an eye on. I don't know if any of these guys are going to make an lasting impact at the major league level, but you do have a couple of guys, or 3 of these guys do have at least some major league experience. They brought in Lavastida, Serven, and Wallach on minor league deals just to serve as potential organizational depth in case a need does come about at the major league level. At the major league level, it's going to be Shea Langoliers and Austin Wynns, but God forbid there's any injury that may come about, you can look to your organizational depth here, and spring training will be a good opportunity to see what these guys may possess. I think for the most part, these are going to be defensive first guys. So definitely guys that the pitching staff, I think, would be able to adjust to well. Really curious to see what they may be able to add offensively too, but should be very interesting. I don't believe the A's are going to carry 3 catchers on the roster. I'd be very surprised. I think they would want to lean on their outfield depth in terms of lengthening their bench, perhaps an additional infielder too as well. I wouldn't think they would want to use up one of those 13 position spots on the roster for a catcher, or a third catcher. So those are the catchers that have been invited. Now we'll move to the infield. Uriel Angeles, Joshua Kuroda Grauer, who is also one of their top 10 A's prospect list. Joey Meneses, who was signed to a minor league deal, as was Michael Stefanik, shout out, who we had the opportunity to interview earlier this offseason, pretty shortly after he did sign with the A's. Just want to give him a shout out, and we're wishing him luck to find a spot on this A's roster, because really do feel that mentality in that clubhouse would be very good. And he's for a young team, and definitely serves a versatile role. Looking forward to seeing what he does throughout the course of spring training. And then two of the more top tier prospects that have been invited to camp are Tommy Tanks, as he's known, but Tommy White, third baseman, and Leo DeVries officially has received an invitation to Major League Camp. So mark those two guys down, especially DeVries. I think he's the one that I'm the most excited to see throughout camp. He is the number 4 prospect in all of baseball, and he continues to be the A's number 1 prospect. He's not even 20 years old yet, still a teen. I think he just recently in November turned 19. He is someone that does project to be the future A's shortstop, which makes you wonder, what's Jacob Wilson's future? Is it going to be at second base or third base? Perhaps. Time will tell, but DeVries is certainly that special. He's supposed to be the next generational talent, so we'll see what he looks like at such a young age, but I think he's definitely going to turn heads based on the scouting report and based on what he showed at the minor league level. Each time he would ascend, it seemed like it would take a minute to adjust to a new level of pitching, but then once he officially adjusted, the numbers were just off the charts. So looking forward to seeing him start to get acclimated at the big league level. I don't expect him to break spring training at big league camp. I would say probably start the year at Double-A, but don't be surprised if by the middle of the year, maybe it's just seeming how quickly these prospects that do get brought along. I mean, look how quickly Nick Kurtz came on the scene. That don't be surprised if we see DeVries at some point this year, especially if in the A's are at that point where they may need a spark and DeVries is killing it in the minor league level, starts at Double-A doing well, gets the call to Triple-A, and if it just makes sense, then why not let the kid see what he can contribute to this team or sooner rather than later. I think realistically we would see DeVries probably more closer to full-time in 2027, but I'm just saying just how the modernization of how development seems to go. Guys are spending less time in the minor leagues. It wouldn't be a total surprise if we saw him at some point this year, even if he was a September call-up or something like that. Nevertheless, I think this will be a good experience for him to be able to interact with guys on the major league team, pick their brain, learn what helped them succeed into getting to that level, and kind of continuing his overall maturation and development process. But he's definitely someone I think out of this group, I'm the most excited to see in DeVries, and looking forward to seeing how he does throughout the spring. And let's see what the A's line of thinking is here too as well. If they want to rush DeVries along and they feel like he's ready, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I'd be a little bit surprised by that at the end of the day. And then the other position players that have been invited to camp are Henry Bolte, another one of their top 10 prospects, Clark Elliott, Ryan Lasko, and Cade Marlowe, who they signed to a minor league deal as well. So that wraps the list of 31 in total that were given this non-roster invitation to A's Major League Spring Training Camp. Keep an eye on them. We'll see who has a legitimate shot of making it. I would say if they were looking, it's probably going to be some of those guys on the pitching side that I think have the most realistic shot. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone like a Nick Anderson get a middle relief role, or if a Kenya Huggins maybe shows something, perhaps he'll get an opportunity at some point this year. Wouldn't be surprised if they try to tap back into Wander Suero from his national days. Like I also mentioned, I think Gage Jump is going to have a legitimate chance to win that 5th spot. Maybe they look to Matt Crook to be a lefty specialist. So I think there's tons of opportunity on the pitching side of things. In terms of the catching position, like I said, I think unless there is an injury at the major league level, I don't think we'll see any of these 4 guys get significant time at the major league. I think these are going to be AAA and AA catchers, or perhaps we'll see some of these guys on other organizations too as well. In terms of from the infield, Stefanik could provide some versatility in terms of providing infield depth. I think it depends on how spring training camp shakes out. And also with DeVries, it just kind of depends on where the A's are at in terms of mentality. If they want to move along this young, exciting prospect sooner rather than later, I don't think that's the case. I think they want to make sure he has the proper development. I think most likely he starts at Double-A, but if he really has an electrifying spring training, nevertheless, I still think he is must-watch, the most exciting player out of this group without a doubt. And then Bolte is going to have an opportunity, I feel like, to land a spot on this roster. He is someone that is knocking on the door. Does seem like there is a lot of depth at that position at the major league level, so it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. But that's a wrap. That was announced on Wednesday. I wanted to share that with you. Get familiarized with some of these names you'll hear if you are tuning into the A's starting in February and following along through their March spring training season. You're going to see this list get cut down as the weeks go on. And then the roster, as it gets closer and closer to open today, will come into scope and make a lot more sense. Okay, let's move along to our next topic of discussion and discuss a potential short-term starting pitching option on a potential prove-it deal. And, of course, I'm going to talk about Zac Gallen. With us being just about 2 weeks away until pitchers and catchers report for the A's on February 11th down in Mesa, just curious to see if any other moves are incoming. There are some big-name free agents out there on the market, like a Eugenio Suarez, if the A's were still looking to upgrade the third base position. Or they're going to be suffice with having their internal candidates like Max Muncy and Hernandez and Brett Harris battle out for everyday reps. But then on the pitching side of things, after exploring, it kind of really made sense that Zac Gallen may be someone that comes into play that at the beginning of the offseason didn't seem as a realistic option. Now, he is coming off his career worst season with the Diamondbacks. In the 2025 season, he made 33 starts, pitching to a 13-15 win-loss record with a 4.83 ERA. He is an absolute workhorse. He still logged 192 innings, something that is a number that seems unheard of these days. He struck out 175 batters, issued 66 walks, and pitched to a 1.26 whip. This is the area where it seemed to really plague him and would be my one area of concern in terms of him transitioning to pitching at Sutter Health Park. He allowed 31 home runs last year, and the Chase Field is certainly a hitter-friendly park, but Sutter Health was the second most hitter-friendly park just behind Coors Field. So that would be concerning. However, I feel after a season like that at the professional level, at the major league level, pitchers are typically going to take a step back, and you're going to see, I feel like, Gallen reinvent himself in a way. Is he going to rely potentially on more of his secondary pitches as compared to just leaning on pure velocity? Perhaps. As someone continues on in their career, you see different versions of how they get hitters out, just because the more innings they pitch, the more times that these hitters around the league are going to see them. So it's got to be difficult going in, year out, with the same plan of attack. Eventually, the hitters are going to develop and potentially have more success against you if you keep showing the same looks. And I think that's kind of the issue where Gallen ran into, where after a certain amount of time, he really just felt susceptible to the home run ball. And I think he's someone that was leaning on that certain style of pitching and repertoire that it was hard to shake and deviate to a different mode of getting hitters out, just because he's had so much success up until that point. It's hard to change a creature of habit within that same year. But now that this past year is come and gone, I'm sure Gallen has gone back to the well and found different paths of success coming into a brand new year. And he initially received the qualifying offer from the Arizona Diamondbacks. He did decline that because he did feel that he was going to garner a multi-year deal out there on the open market. And while he still had the high strikeout stuff, I think a lot of teams are alarmed at the inflated ERA and the large amount of home runs given up and his declining production over the last two seasons as compared to what he was at the peak of his powers. Over his career, he has amassed a 3.58 career ERA and a 1.19 ERA plus. So the full body of work is pretty good. In fact, as of 2023, I believe he was a top 3 NL Cy Young candidate in terms of voting. That's where he finished up. And he has a 3.27 strikeout to walk ratio and over 1,000 career innings. So he is someone that is contributing to winning performances. He has amassed nearly a 21 WAR over his career. So he is someone that is a positive. And at this point, at the beginning of the offseason, with what his expected value was, I would have said, oh, no shot that the A's would be in camp with this. However, I feel at this point in spring training, or at this point in the offseason with spring training being so close away, I'm sure Gallen is itching to find a new home. And I think at this point, teams seem to be a little concerned between the declining production, but then also with him declining the qualifying offer, whatever team signs him is going to have to provide the Diamondbacks with some draft pick compensation as terms with the qualifying offer, so with declining the qualifying offer. So I think that's what shied teams away. And I think this is an opportunity for a smaller market team like the A's to be able to swoop in and provide Gallen with a 1-year prove-it deal. Now, I know a lot of the metrics say that a fly ball pitcher is going to be, could potentially be an issue. However, like I mentioned, I want to treat everything on a year-to-year basis. And I feel like just seeing how professional players develop, I feel like Gallen is going to make adjustments to avoid that, to get back to being more of a type of a sinker baller type with a higher velocity, because his career ground ball percentage is actually higher than Chris Bassett's, who is known as a ground ball pitcher. So Gallen does have that in him. I think just over the 2 years, he's lived a little bit more elevated in the zone due to his uptick in velocity. I think that's what's left him susceptible to the home run ball. So I think if he learns to work more quadrants in the lower quadrants of the plate, perhaps Gallen could have a bounce back performance, especially he comes into a franchise. He would be hungry on a 1-year deal, wanting to prove to the league that he still is one of the premier pitchers. Someone that motivated with that type of repertoire, with how the A's performed last season as a pitching staff as a whole, sign me up. Because Gallen would slot in here, 3-4 slot, no problem. On a 1-year prove-it deal, if it doesn't work out, so be it. But at least you're trying something different. And I think with the billing that he showed last year, I think it can only get better from there. I'd be very surprised if I saw that ERA inflate over 4.83. He's still going to have that high strikeout stuff, but I'm telling you, I can see him reinventing himself a bit, and whatever tweaks that he does make is something that the hitters aren't necessarily going to be ready for. On a 1-year deal, sign me up, because I think the ceiling is tremendously high. If it doesn't work out, so be it. You cut ties with him. But at least you're making some concerted effort to bring someone with a track record like a Gallen that perhaps even if he has an average year, that's better than a lot of what we saw throughout the 2025 season, as the A's being in the lower half of team pitching as a whole across the league. So for the A's, to me, I would love to see this. And let's see if they make it happen before spring training. I know some other teams have been linked to him, I think like the Cubs and the Orioles. But on this 1-year deal, the A's could perhaps sweeten it, perhaps add a little bit extra financial incentives, some additional bonus percentives too as well, to, I feel, who's going to be already very motivated Gallen. So just wanted to bring that here to our airwaves. Is it going to happen? I would say chances are probably not. I think Gallen is going to choose one of those other teams. I can see him ending up with the Orioles. That would be a boost to their rotation as well. They're kind of in the similar boat where their rotation was inconsistent last year, and Gallen would provide that boost. And same thing, that similar ceiling. And if it doesn't work out, I feel like it would be a similar 1-year type of prove-it deal, and they can cut their ties there as well. But it would be very intriguing to me. I think Zac Gallen would improve this rotation, provide some more depth, and I'm thinking he's really inclined for a big bounce back in 2026, and would love to see him do that in the green and gold. All right. Before we continue on, this episode is brought to you by the Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena. Stay in the heart of downtown at Holiday Inn Sacramento Downtown Arena, ideally located near Old Sacramento Waterfront, Golden One Center, and Downtown Commons Doco. Our full-service Sacramento hotel is just 15 minutes from Sacramento International Airport and within walking distance of the California State Capitol and Safe Credit Union Convention Center. Host meetings, conferences, and social events, and our flexible boardrooms and ballrooms supported by experienced on-site sales and events teams. Enjoy modern amenities including a rooftop outdoor pool, on-site fitness center, and Cypress Grill restaurant serving breakfast, dinner, and cocktails. Guest rooms and suites feature comfortable workspaces, contemporary amenities, and city views, making them ideal for both short stays and extended visits. Whether you are attending an event, planning a meeting, or exploring Sacramento dining, entertainment, and cultural attractions, our downtown location keeps you close to it all. Downtown access, full-service comfort, easy booking. Stay at our downtown Sacramento hotel. All right. Before we get on out of here for the weekend, we are going to continue on with this week's edition of This Player in A's History. As promised on our previous episode on Tuesday, we were kicking it back to the 2010s decade. So as a treat, today we are telling the journey of former MLB third baseman and catcher Josh Donaldson. Donaldson was born in Pensacola, Florida on December 8, 1985. He was raised by his mother, Lisa French, while his father, Levon Donaldson, was imprisoned for most of his childhood. When Donaldson was 18 months old, he appeared on a local TV station showing off a picture-perfect golf swing. He grew up an Atlanta Braves fan, with his favorite player being Ron Gant. Donaldson attended Pace High School in Pace, Florida for his sophomore year and played varsity baseball. His mother, Lisa, moved him after that to Faith Academy in Mobile, Alabama, to reunite him with his friend P.J. Walters at the academy. At Faith, Donaldson competed in football, basketball, and baseball. As a shortstop and pitcher, Donaldson was the Alabama Gatorade Player of the Year as a senior, batting .515 on the season, and led Faith Academy to a state title. Donaldson set 4 Faith Academy single-season records in baseball with hits with 55, triples with 6, doubles with 21, and RBIs with 54. In football, Donaldson was a wide receiver, defensive back, and punter, setting a school record with 11 interceptions in one season as a senior. Donaldson would go on to enroll at Auburn University, where he played college baseball as a catcher and third baseman for the Auburn Tigers baseball team in the SEC. During his freshman season in 2005, Donaldson started 39 games at third base, hitting .294 with 7 home runs, and also began learning to play catcher. In his sophomore season, Donaldson hit .276 and led the team with 10 home runs. He also threw out 15 out of 38 base stealers and had 7 pickoffs. In the summer of 2006, Donaldson played for the Harwich Mariners of the Cape Cod Baseball League, where he was an all-star and hit .302. In 2007, Donaldson was named a Louisville Slugger preseason All-American. The Chicago Cubs would end up drafting Donaldson as a catcher in the first round, 48th overall, of the 2007 Major League Baseball draft. In his first minor league season, Donaldson played 53 games for the rookie Arizona League Cubs and short season A Boise Hawks, batting a combined .335 with 9 home runs and 25 RBIs. He also walked more than he struck out, with 39 and 38 respectively. In 2008, he played 63 games with the Class A Peoria Chiefs, where he hit .217 with 6 home runs and 23 RBIs. In July 2008, the Cubs would trade Donaldson, Matt Merton, Eric Patterson, and Sean Gallagher to the Oakland A's for Rich Harden and Chad Gaudin. He played 47 games with the Advanced A Stockton Ports, where he played the entire 2009 season with the Double-A Midland Rockhawks and recorded a batting average of .270 with 9 home runs and 91 RBIs. Donaldson was called up to the majors for the first time on April 30th, 2010, filling in for injured catcher Kurt Suzuki. He made his debut that night as a pinch hitter and struck out. The next day, he recorded his first major league hit, a 2-run home run on the first pitch by Toronto Blue Jays pitcher Dana Eveland. In 14 games played during the 2010 season, Donaldson made 34 plate appearances and recorded 5 hits. After returning to the minor leagues, he spent the season with the AAA Sacramento River Cats and hit .238 with 18 home runs and 67 RBIs for the season. Donaldson played the entire 2011 season in Sacramento, improving his average to .261 and hit 17 home runs and 70 runs batted in. Donaldson officially converted to third base from catching in the beginning of the 2012 season during spring training. He started the regular season as the everyday third baseman for the A's for the first half, but due to struggles, he was sent to AAA Sacramento for much of the season. The A's recalled him in the middle of August after everyday third baseman Brandon Inge was placed on the 15-day disabled list with an injured arm. Donaldson helped the A's into making the postseason and finished the 2012 season with 9 home runs and 33 RBIs to go along with a 241 batting average. Off of Detroit Tigers reliever Brian Villarreal, Donaldson hit his first career walk-off home run on April 12, 2013. It was the A's first walk-off win in 2013. He hit his first career grand slam on June 7th against Chicago White Sox starter Chris Sale. Major League Baseball named Donaldson the American League Player of the Month for September after batting .337 with 20 runs scored, 8 doubles, 5 home runs, and 16 RBIs in 25 games. He played 158 games and finished the season with 24 home runs, 93 RBIs, and a .301 batting average, good enough for finishing 4th in American League MVP voting. Donaldson was elected to his first All-Star appearance in 2014 as the starter at third base for the American League. Donaldson hit a 3-run walk-off home run in the 9th inning against the Baltimore Orioles on July 17th to lead the A's to a 5-4 win. Donaldson won his first career Fielding Bible Award for his work at third base. During the 2014 season, Donaldson hit 98 RBIs, 29 home runs, and 93 runs scored, beating out his career highs with Oakland. However, Donaldson's batting average went down to .255. Donaldson would end up finishing 8th in the American League MVP voting. On November 28th, 2014, his time with the A's would come to an end as he was traded to the Toronto Blue Jays for Brett Lowry, Kendall Graveman, Sean Nolan, and Franklin Barreto. He would go on to win the American League MVP, of course, during his first season with the Blue Jays, leading the league in runs scored and RBIs. Toronto reached the ALCS in 2015 and 16. Donaldson played parts of 4 seasons for the Blue Jays. His .931 OPS with the club is second in franchise history, trailing only Carlos Delgado. They would go on to trade him to the Cleveland Indians at the deadline in 2018. Donaldson hit .280 with a .920 OPS after the trade, but was just 1 for 11 in postseason play. He signed a 1-year deal the next season with the Atlanta Braves, his childhood team, as a free agent, slashing .259 for an average, .379 on base, and a .521 slug for them. The Minnesota Twins, right after that, the following season, would sign Donaldson to a 4-year, $92 million contract. Various injuries and the COVID-19 pandemic limited him to just 28 games in that first season. He posted an .842 OPS while on the field, but he was not active in the playoffs. Donaldson hit a double in his first at-bat of the 2021 season, but limped into second base and was immediately put on the injured list. His absence was short, and he wound up playing 135 games. Donaldson had an .827 OPS in 2021. It was named the Media Good Guy Award winner by the Minnesota chapter of the BBWAA. His run scored on May 29th, 2021 was the 2 millionth in Major League history. He would go on to be traded to the New York Yankees during spring training in 2022. Donaldson delivered a walk-off single on opening day for his new club, but his 2-year tenure there was mostly unsuccessful. New York would release him on August 29, 2023. The Milwaukee Brewers picked him up for a postseason push. Donaldson filled in as their starting third baseman for the final month of play. It was 2 for 7 with a walk in the playoffs. Milwaukee was swept in the 2-game wildcard round by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Donaldson would retire just before spring training in 2024. Over his 13-year career, he played in 1,383 games, a .261 batting average with 279 home runs, 816 RBIs, and .847 OPS, 1,310 hits, and 287 doubles. During his Oakland A's career, during his 4 seasons in the green and gold, he played in 405 games, batting .268 with 63 home runs, 228 RBIs, and an .805 OPS with a career even 400 hits and 85 doubles. Over his illustrious career, he was the 2015 American League MVP with the Blue Jays, a 3-time All-Star, and a 2-time Silver Slugger Award at third base. Better known as the bringer of rain, Donaldson certainly falls into that category of the Hall of Very Good, someone that got it done for a consistent period of time, both offensively and with the glove. Someone that definitely played with an edge, and someone that just had that hunger and desire to be a winning player. So it was a pleasure to tell the story of Josh Donaldson today. I know his time with the A's was rather short, but I think he really made an impact towards the end of his tenure there, and he really went on to establish himself as one of the better players in all of Major League Baseball. So I wanted to share that with all of you for this week's edition of This Player in A's History. JD, the bringer of Ray, who is now retired, definitely was someone that got his start with the green and gold, and you saw flashes of his MVP form that he would go on to become in Toronto. So definitely was very intrigued by doing research into him, was definitely very familiar following him along throughout the entirety of his career, and looking forward to seeing what ventures he may pursue in his post-playing career. And with that, that brings us to the close of another edition of A's Day. We appreciate you kicking off your weekend with us here. On today's show, we had the opportunity to take a look at the non-roster players that received invitations to A's Major League Camp. Later, we took a look at seeing if it made sense for the A's to perhaps pursue Zac Gallen joining this rotation on a one-year prove-it deal. And then before getting on out of here for the weekend, we wanted to continue on with this week's edition of This Player in A's History, taking it back to the 2010s, telling the story of Josh Donaldson. We'll be back again for Tuesday's edition of A's Day. On Tuesday, we'll discuss any transactions, if anything goes on between now and that show. I know it's been rather quiet for these last few weeks. Hopefully the A's land another pitcher to their starting rotation or bullpen, or perhaps they get an internal extension complete. If any of those news or any news around the A's do occur, we will be sure to talk all about it on Tuesday's show. And then for the bulk of our next show on Tuesday, we are going to do a preview of A's spring training, some positional battles to take a look at, as well as some key interesting facts. That's all I have for you today. Appreciate each and every one of you stopping by to hear my thoughts on A's baseball. We are so excited that baseball is inching closer and closer with each passing week. Once again, I'm your host, Joe Grado. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate you, the lovely audience. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back behind the mic talking A's baseball for Tuesday's show. Holy Toledo, let's go A's.